is going to the Final Four.
The following is a Learfield presentation of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game.
This is Duck Insider.
These are good problems to have, right? So much success that you have more than one place to be.
5-3, touchdown, Oregon.
Off a dribble, launches, and hits the three. Oregon leads.
What a great opportunity it is to be able to play at the University of Oregon.
I'm just incredibly proud to be a part of something like this.
She wants another three. Oh, three in a row.
Swing and a miss. Oregon is headed to the Super Regional.
Fans being out there making this a great impact.
We are so privileged and so fortunate. We get to see all these young people. We get to see this incredible growth, which is what college is all about.
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Now let's go live to the Country Financial Studio to talk Oregon Duck Athletics.
Getting closer and closer. It feels like every time we start the show, it's like the countdown continues, right? As the mighty Big Week continues across the University of Oregon campus. Duck volleyball with a sweep last night in a top 25 battle at Matthew Knight Arena. Shout out to the Ducks who, coming off that tough back-to-back on the road where they played back-to-back days, getting things on the winning side. They had an 11-match winning streak before dropping that one to number 3 Penn State. And now here we are talking about one in a row. And then as a famous movie once said, you get 2 in a row, and then it's a winning streak. Hopefully the Ducks will continue that as Mighty Big Week continues for Oregon volleyball over the weekend on Sunday against Washington. Ducks and Dogs coming up. And then on tonight, Oregon soccer is in action at Pape Field. It is match day against Michigan State. The Ducks with a 6:30 start on Big Ten Network. Oregon getting ready for the final couple matchups at Pape Field with Senior Day on the horizon on Sunday. Also, we got just a few things going on Saturday on the University of Oregon campus with the Lillis Business Complex in the background, right there in the quad, ESPN's College Game Day, from 6 to 9 a.m. Hope to see a great crowd, and I'm happy to report that we've got a special edition poster in honor of Ben. You don't know who Ben is? Well, it's Kirk Herbstreit's best friend, I think, at this point, right? There's some posters. They're going to be given away. Yeah, we're giving away the poster to some select fans at ESPN's College Game Day. Ben has his own poster. You know, that's a good poster. It's a good poster. Ben's got his own frameable artwork at this point. So ESPN's College Game Day, of course, and then a 4:30 start for Oregon football against Ohio State. And talking about the Buckeyes, we'll preview the matchup with some Oregon football student athletes, Jeff Basa, Kobe Savage, Johnny Cornelius, Terrence Ferguson. Mentioned Oregon volleyball, maybe a couple comments from them after that win over the weekend. And ultimately, this is what it's all about. And getting the view from the other side today. We talked earlier this week with Paul Keels. He is the voice of the Buckeyes. But getting the well-rounded view from him, it was an interesting conversation. The Ducks and Buckeyes do, of course, have a little bit of recent history, Oregon winning in Columbus a few years ago. And then, ultimately, a few postseason matchups. And, you know, we don't talk about those ones as often. They're not as fond of memories around the Oregon fan base. But we talked about all of those things, talking with Paul Keels. Also a note, I think that this game, certainly for all of the external reasons the team can't be thinking about, this game will have a great environment. Looking forward to an active fan base. Coach Lanning said, hey, get there, be loud. Maybe not when the offense is on the field, though, right? It helps to have that O-line be able to communicate, all those audibles, all those sorts of things. So an active participant, though. I was just talking with folks around here, like, we've got some things in store for game day at Autzen Stadium. Just be an active participant. We'll have some fun during those timeouts, get things fired up. Yeah. And I'm hoping that our colleague Paul Keels walks away from all of this going, wow, this is something, this Autzen Stadium. He will have the call, Paul will, on the Ohio State radio network, and we caught up with the voice of the Buckeyes, Paul Keels, previewing Ducks and Ohio State this Saturday. All right, so this is now going to become the norm. It was just a few years ago that Paul Keels, voice of the Buckeyes, joining us, that he was on with us, and now We're going to have to get used to this. So, Paul, thanks for returning the email. Thanks for taking the time to join us. I guess welcome to the new Big Ten, and thanks for having us, huh?
Well, not like I had anything to do with it, Joey, but you're welcome. And, yeah, we're all kind of getting used to this new world of the Big Ten.
What's been the perception of you and the Buckeye fan base in the new era of realigned college football? Take us back. What's it been like?
Well, we've kind of gone through it in stages, much like you guys have out there. We went through when Maryland and Rutgers were added a number of years ago. Nebraska came in prior to that. And, the Nebraska one made a lot of sense, especially for the westernmost members of the Big Ten, like Minnesota and Iowa and Wisconsin. But the Rutgers and Maryland one was a real puzzler and still kind of is. I guess it fits with Penn State a little bit. But once that happened and all of the other stuff started being talked about, especially when Texas and Oklahoma left the Big 12 for the SEC, I think we all knew that everything was on the table. And, when the USC and UCLA move happened, it kind of stood to reason that others would occur. And you may or may not know this, Joey, but Ohio State was supposed to play Washington in Seattle this year.
Right.
When both schools decided to back out of that gave you a lot of indications that you folks from the Northwest were going to become part of the Big Ten.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think Oregon fans certainly remember that in 2020 it was supposed to be Oregon and Ohio State here at home, and then we made the return trip in 2021, and I won't talk about that one with you, Paul, because I'm sure Buckeye fans don't want to hear about it. But the last time that these two teams met, isn't that amazing, though, that you think about these marquee non-conference matchups that get scheduled so far in advance, and then here we are. I mean, things do change rapidly, don't they?
They sure do. And the conference shakeups have had a lot to do with that. 2020, the pandemic certainly affected the trip to come out there. Although I would imagine had that been played, we would have not made the trip. Our company had us doing all away games virtually. We had a company-wide mandate, not for no business travel, not just for us, but all of our people in our radio company. So, but it is kind of interesting how so many of those matchups for years, Joey, were done, 5-10 years in advance. Now it seems to. And it's happened not so much with the home and homes, but, Ohio State just changed next year's. They replaced UConn with Grambling State. And the reason they did that, they wanted to move their bye weekend.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. Now with the multiple bye weeks, things certainly change as we continue with Paul Keels, voice of the Buckeyes. All right, now you have seen a lot of Oregon and Ohio State matchups, a lot of highly ranked games. We've seen Rose Bowls. Where does number 2 versus number 3 in the regular season fit into all of that? I'm sure you've gotten that question a lot this week.
Yeah, especially when it comes to these two schools. We've seen some similar matchups, whether it was, back in 2006, it was Ohio State and Michigan when they were 1 and 2 in the country at the end of the regular season. But this one, I think, because of the fact that it's a new conference member. And, I think people are just having to get used to, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, those being conference games. That's part of it. The fact that Ohio State did not have a premier non-conference matchup really led to this one being circled an awful lot. But I think, too, when you look at what Oregon's been able to do with the transfer portal, they look more like a Big Ten team than maybe they have in some of the more recent matchups, especially when you look at the way the Ducks are playing on the defensive line. So I think that's one of those things. And also coming to Autzen Stadium, which, will be a first experience for so many of us. That kind of adds a nice ingredient to the whole thing as well.
You mentioned the environment, and I guess I'll go there, and I have multiple follow-ups to that, Paul, as we continue with Paul Keels, voice of the Buckeyes. What is the view from Buckeye fans of this game? I mean, look, we know the ticket prices. I see all that. I've talked about it on this show. Just how many Buckeye fans are coming out? What's this matchup mean for Ohio State fans?
Not as many as would like to.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I want to say it might have been 2003, 2004, they went and played Washington in Seattle, and the Huskies were having a tough time then. But there were about 20,000 Ohio State fans in Husky Stadium for that game. I'm not sure, Joey, how many will be there. There were a lot of folks that had kind of targeted that in 2020, and it didn't happen. I know there's a lot of folks, too, that have been kind of discouraged when you looked at the cost of what it is, for flights, for tickets, hotels, things like this. But the thing that always surprises us, especially when you go to a place that either it's for the first time in a long time like this, or even when it's places that Ohio State goes fairly regularly, the attendance of Buckeye fans on the road is overwhelming. Now maybe they can't get as many tickets as they'd like, but certainly you'll see a noticeable Ohio State presence. That doesn't mean it's going to drown out the Oregon crowd. There's no way that's going to happen, but it may be pleasantly surprising for those Ohio State fans, just the presence of scarlet and gray in that stadium. There's
certainly a reputation of Autzen Stadium, I think, across the country. What's your perception of Autzen before you set foot into this building here coming up?
Well, whenever you see games at a stadium on TV or a ballpark or something like that, you have a curiosity and you have an idea, but oftentimes it's not necessarily the same. It looks to be, and again, you compare a lot of it to Ohio Stadium or some of the other places you see. It looks to be cozier, anxious to see how the cantilevered ceilings kind of create that whole look. Coach John Cooper, who does some of the shows with us here on our network, spent a couple of years coaching at Oregon State, and he said he can't remember a lot about Eugene, but he remembered it was loud. So that's kind of the anticipation, and just really curious to see a new environment.
And then to that point, too, what's your assessment, as you touched on, there's some past history between these two teams, right? Oregon playing at Ohio State a few years ago, we alluded to the Rose Bowls, but you said that maybe the defensive line is a little more akin to a Big Ten team, Paul. I got to tell you, I think Coach Lanning would be happy to hear you say that. I think I'm excited for those matchups. What is your assessment of the Ducks heading into this one?
Well, we'll start with the defense, and seeing a guy like Derek Harmon, who's played against Ohio State when he was at Michigan State, seeing the way Birch has played at defensive end, I mean, he just looks like an incredible force of nature. Just the size and the aggressiveness that he combines with his athleticism. And then seeing Betcher, the way he's played at linebacker, it certainly looks like a defense that can create pressure from a number of different points. But I think when most people, Joey, think about Oregon, they think about the offense, explosive on all points. Dylan Gabriel has played an awful lot of football. He's shown the ability to hurt you through the air, the ability to hurt you on the ground. And, I know he had that big run against Oregon State. The wide receivers, especially Tez Johnson, looks like a game-changing type of wide receiver. Terrence Ferguson, the tight end, is an impressive-looking player. You can see why NFL scouts are really excited about what it is that he can do. And certainly what you've got at tailback shows the ability to be a game-changing type of player. So, I think people understand that, these two teams are ranked where they are for a very good reason.
And to that point, I think Oregon fans know a lot of the mastermind that Chip Kelly can be. How much has that come up this week, Paul?
It's come up, but I think it's also been lessened a little bit, the fact that, Chip, I think, 3 times he came to Eugene with UCLA.
That's right.
I think Chip, if I'm not mistaken, Joe, I think he only coached against Ohio State once, and that was the Rose Bowl when the Ducks and the Buckeyes played. But,
yep.
The Chip Kelly influence has been an interesting one because, he and Ryan Day, their connection go back to Manchester, New Hampshire, where Chip recruited Ryan. He coached under him. It kind of surprised a lot of people when Bill O'Brien left after a couple of weeks to take the Boston College job. Ryan Day had privately said the first call he was going to make to Chip Kelly to see if he would be willing to consider leaving and coming back here. And it's done some interesting things. Chip Kelly's had more of an influence maybe on the run game than what people would think. But it's also freed up Ryan Day to spend more time than maybe he had in the past in other parts of the coaching game. And a lot of that's just because of the trust that he has with Chip Kelly.
I think that's a great point to make, because I remember Chip said something to that effect when he took the job, like, hey, he loves coaching football. And when you're the head coach, I mean, Paul, there's a lot of other stuff that goes on for the head coach, right? I mean, so it's amazing now to hear you say that here months later. Like, that's got to be meaningful for somebody like Coach Day, right?
No question. And, I think name, image, and likeness and transfer portal have a lot to do with the additional items that are now on head coaches' plates. But, I know that Ryan Day was thrilled to have Bill O'Brien, if that would have worked out. He's kind of groomed Brian Hartline a little bit, who's kind of in a co-coordinator role, but he's the receivers coach. But there's certainly an incredible comfort factor with him having Chip Kelly here.
We're talking with Paul Keels. He's the voice of the Buckeyes on this matchup, a top 3 showdown at Autzen Stadium. 4:30 kickoff, televised on NBC. 2:30 pregame show for us across the Oregon Sports Network. Dave asking about the guest picker on game day. Stay tuned. More coming up on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by your local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, we're more than just an award-winning golf course and practice facility. Our events team offers all-inclusive event pricing that allows us to take care of all the details while you enjoy your event. Our indoor and outdoor venues offer you a wide variety of fully staffed options that put the focus on you. From weddings to business and social events, at Shadow Hills Country Club Events Center, you get the benefits of a resort atmosphere and amenities in a peaceful country setting, just minutes from downtown Eugene. Call for a tour today or visit shadowhillsevents.com.
More Duck Insider from the Country Financial Studios after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Comes to a gun suicide attempt, all it takes is a moment.
My son Ricky took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me, and I contemplated suicide. My grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
Store your guns, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo. Hear more safe stories at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
This message is for Shauna, my mom who just finished her high school diploma. I wanted to say I'm so proud of you for finishing school. You taught me it's never too late to achieve your dreams. I hope to make you as proud as you have made me.
When you graduate, they graduate. Finish your high school diploma for you and for them. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
It's Duck Insider, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. I'm Joey Mack in the Country Financial Studio. We've got a big kickoff coming, and we'll have a call starting at 2:30 for our pregame show across the Oregon Sports Network. I don't know when the pregame show starts for Ohio State. We might ask Paul Keels. More questions coming about the guest picker. One of the more fun things as part of college game day, to have that guest picker. Just stay tuned. Stay tuned. Paul Keels, part 2, with the voice of the Buckeyes, talking about this matchup between Oregon and Ohio State this weekend. Talking about the offense, you went through some of the big names defensively and offensively for Oregon. Now for Duck fans, we've heard an awful lot about some playmakers at wide receiver, some playmakers at that tailback spot for the Buckeyes. What is the assessment of the offense so far from an Ohio State perspective?
Well, in general, Joey, this is an offense that appears, in what they've done so far, they have a number of different threats. You start with Will Howard at quarterback, an experienced guy, and he gives Ohio State a rushing threat at that position that they've not had since Justin Fields. You had Seth McLaughlin at center, a transfer from Alabama. And really what that's done is helped what was maybe a question mark about this team, the offensive line, in the early part of the season look like an area that really has gained some traction. The running backs, with the addition of Quinshon Judkins coming in from Ole Miss, and paired with Travion Henderson, two guys that have each rushed for over 3,000 in their career. It gives Ohio State a 1-2 punch, and the two of them have been very unselfish about this and have been very team-oriented. You know, then you go to the receiving spot, and Emeka Egbuka, who has been around for a while, he's from the state of Washington, was hurt last year and missed parts of 3 games, but he's bounced back and played like he did 2 years ago. And Jeremiah Smith, just the true freshman. It's remarkable to see what he does, his size, his skill, his speed. And then there's the tight ends who've done a reasonably good job with what they've done. So from the offensive standpoint, it's kind of, if you're an opponent, you kind of have to pick your poison.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, I thought about this before we were talking today, and then hearing you say that Chip has had more of an influence in the run game than maybe people would realize, I couldn't help but think to myself, Paul, gosh, that is exactly how so many people felt about the way that he was at Oregon. It was the run game at Oregon that made things go. It was often a two-headed monster that made things go for Oregon in the backfield, a mobile quarterback. I mean, as I'm saying this, Duck fans are listing off, yeah, like that makes it difficult to defend, I'd imagine.
Well, and that's kind of the whole plan, what they really tried to do. And, you know, the other thing, Joey, and some of it spilled over to the defensive side as well, Ohio State was really helped not only by the players they brought in, but the players who decided to stay,
sure,
especially on the defensive side. Jack Sawyer and Jalen Tuimoloau at the ends, Tyleik Williams at defensive tackle, Denzel Burke at cornerback. So there's a great insertion of players who help fill immediate needs, but also players who stayed, players who've developed, gotten a year older, a year more experienced. So there's a lot of those points that really led to all of the expectations that Ohio State fans had about this team this year.
When are the Buckeyes coming out? What's the practice and travel schedule?
Well, what Coach Day has decided to do is make it as close as possible to a regular road trip. So they're going to leave Friday morning, come out, stay in Eugene, and then come back home right after the game. Now, it's a couple of long trips. Now, they move into their second bye weekend after the Oregon game for whatever that does. But, he talked in his press conference this week. People asked him about the travel. They said it's only 2 more hours beyond Nebraska. So they're trying to make it as close as they can to just a regular road trip, even though everybody knows it's not. But from a mental point with the football team, they're just trying to make it business as usual.
You have to, right? I mean, we've had these same conversations as the West Coast brethren, right, to the Ohio States and everybody else of the former Big Ten, or the legacy Big Ten, I should say, Paul. I mean, you kind of have to approach it that way, right? Like you and I are in an industry where we hear what a lot of fans would call coach speak, but I've said before, you kind of have to approach things that way, right?
Absolutely. And, I think for the Midwestern and the Eastern teams, they're all making, I believe, just one trip to the West Coast. It's the Western schools that are making multiple trips coming across time zones. So that's a little more of a challenge there. I don't know if that's kind of the booby prize for joining the Big Ten, but you have to look at it that way. And honestly, that's something I think teams, Joey, are going to have to look at when they get into the playoffs too, with this new playoff format, because those 12 teams are not going to have the normal bowl experience.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Paul, and I think it's really an apt point as we all think about this moving forward. Like, even professional sports, there's an awful lot of travel, and there's certainly some comparisons there. That there's no doubt in this larger college athletics landscape. Paul Keels with us. Okay, we talked offense, we talked defense. I didn't ask you about special teams. Is that a game changer for Ohio State? What's the report on the Buckeye special teams?
Well, we know, Joey, it can be a game changer for anybody. Ohio State, it's not been, I wouldn't say a weak area, but it's an area that a few moments has propped up a few little concerns. Case in point being Jaden Fielding, their place kicker, who's been very, very reliable. In the game against Marshall, he had 3 straight kickoffs that went out of bounds. Well, we found out afterwards he was dealing with some sort of an injury. Very next game against Michigan State, he was on point. They've not really needed him in a clutch situation at this point, but he's been pretty solid in his 2 years. They're breaking in a new punter. That probably hasn't been to the level that they've had in past years, but it hasn't really hurt them. What they're really pushing for is to try and get a return broken. They haven't had a kickoff return for a touchdown since 2010. They haven't had a punt return for a touchdown since 2014. We know that those are harder to do now, but that's one of those areas that they're really pushing. And, with some of the coaching changes they made, they no longer have one coach that's involved as the special teams coordinator. All of the other position coaches, including Ryan Day, are working on special teams. Now, when you see what Oregon's done with already a punt return and a kick return for a touchdown and a game-winning field goal, that's certainly an area where you think Oregon has been tested in special teams and has succeeded more so than Ohio State has.
Well, and it had been an awful while since we saw one of those returns for a touchdown, Paul. So hearing you reference those numbers, I was like, man, I talked about that just a few weeks ago for the Ducks. And I guess that brings me to one of my final thoughts here for you, Paul, is there are so many similarities between these two teams. You talk about weapons on offense. Oregon had some questions on the offensive line. Now things have settled down. Sounds similar for Ohio State. Good defensive fronts. Like, do you agree with that assessment? Like, how similar are these two squads heading into this one?
I think there's a lot of similarities. And, where that comes into play, who knows? But, depth could be one of those areas, not knowing a whole lot about what Oregon's depth is. But Ohio State's been able to develop some depth across the board in a number of areas. And, Ohio State really, they faced a little adversity, but they've not been in a late game situation where they've trailed. They've been able to pull away in the second half from opponents. But, they've dealt last couple of games with some turnovers. But they've been resilient when that's happened, and that's one of the things that encourages you about them. And yeah, there's a good reason to think that there's some similarities between these two.
Yeah. All right, final thing. Keys to the game, the most obvious question a broadcaster can ask. What are they?
Well, it'll sound, Joey, like coach speak, like it always does. Turnovers. Yeah. Ohio State has been very good at getting them. They committed a couple of them last Saturday against Iowa, but they got 3 to come their way. And I know that Oregon's had some problems with some turnovers, namely the 2 in the red zone against Michigan State last week. So whoever's able to avoid those or come out on the right side of the number, that's going to be a big advantage. I think certainly Ohio State's come off a game where they committed just 1 penalty. Iowa only committed 1, too. If you can keep from getting lopsided in penalties in a tight game like this, that can make a big difference. But most likely, these are the kind of games where it comes down to one play that can swing momentum. It might not necessarily have to be a score, but one play that can kind of give a team an upper advantage. And for the road team like Ohio State, it's being able to do something that can take that legendary crowd at Autzen Stadium and maybe make them a little less crazy and have some things go their way to make it. It's going to be tough to do, but to be able to make it a less daunting environment.
Yeah, I feel like in these pressure games, it's always that sudden change, right? Your coaches talk about sudden change. Got to find a way to mitigate it or take advantage of it. Paul Keels, voice of the Buckeyes, thank you so much for the time, sir. I look forward to shaking your hand again here in Eugene rather than in Columbus. Thanks for the time, sir.
My pleasure, Joey. I look forward to seeing you.
Paul Keels, voice of the Buckeyes. It was fun for me hearing some of the perspective, I think, from another program that's highly ranked. And, I'll tell you, as he was talking about just the way that the offense runs, and I really was thinking, like, boy, that just sounds like a Chip Kelly offense, right? Like, you have those 2 running backs. You have a quarterback that can hurt you with the legs. And so last week we talked so much, and you heard the Ducks talk so much about maintaining that cage around the quarterback. I think this week that's another key. It is a key. It's always about stopping the run and winning in the trenches. You're going to hear every coach say that. And maybe it's heightened in a game like this where the margins could be so thin, and talking with Tony Tuioti for our pregame show. You'll hear that coming up on the Oregon Sports Network podcast on Saturday and as part of our 2-hour pregame show that begins at 2:30. To give you a little preview, though, I talked with Coach Tuioti about that, and he actually made the comparison that this game, especially when you have these 2 really talented programs facing off, this game may feel like a 12-round boxing match where, like, each drive, for example, if you're on the defensive line, is 1 round. So if you can win a round, you win a second round, you start to stack those rounds, you're going to come out on top after that 12-round boxing match. And I thought that was a really good analogy that Coach Tuioti used. So that's part of our interview coming up with Tony Tuioti as part of our pregame show that gets underway at 2:30. Quick timeout. When we come back to the Duck defense, hear a bit from Jeffrey Basa, one of the vets, one of the leaders, and he has some perspective on the last time the Ducks played Ohio State. Stick around on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Hey Duck fans, at Country Financial, they make insurance easy. Whether you're shopping for home, auto, or more, their representatives will take the time to understand your specific needs and explain what options work best for you. Worry less and feel more confident knowing you're covered. Visit countryfinancial.com to get started today. Experience more with Country Financial.
Auto and home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, and Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
More Duck Insider coming up on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
You said you'd never buy your kid candy from the checkout aisle. Or forget extra diapers. You'd never lick your thumb to clean their face. Never, ever become a minivan mom. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk in temperatures as low as 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Never happens. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
August was born 3 pounds, 9.8 ounces. When I first saw him, it was a whole range of emotions. There's stuff I still want to do. Being a young dad, it's not giving up. It's shifting. I look through his eyes. I can envision the whole future with him already. To throw the first football to him, give him ice cream for the first time. My life is now devoted to his life.
Through all of fatherhood's firsts, never stop being a dad. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Every time you hear it, you just think about what it's going to be like in between that third and fourth quarter coming up on Saturday. Jeffrey Basa, one of the veterans, as we welcome you back to Duck Insider, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. He talked with the media earlier this week, and some good perspective on another highly ranked, highly anticipated matchup between Oregon and Ohio State. And, you know, it's amazing to think about the recent history of this matchup. There's been some high-profile meetings between the Ducks and the Buckeyes. You think about the Rose Bowl. You think about the national championship game. You think about a road test for the Ducks in Columbus. And Jeffrey Basa, of course, was there. He had some perspective on it. Talked a bit about when the Ducks were actually a little bit banged up in that game. Remember, Kayvon Thibodeau did not play in Columbus, and the Ducks got the win. So that's come up for sure this week. Some comparisons between these two really good teams. They were two really good teams the last time that they played. Jeffrey Basa talking about the Duck defense and heading into this matchup with the Buckeyes.
You're one of the handful of guys who's still around from that 21 game at Ohio State. What stands out to you about what you remember about that one and how you guys came away with the win?
Yeah, just, you know, the whole process leading up to that week, the training, the preparation that we had that week, and then also that long flight going over there as well. You know, being without guys like KT, I know KT was out that game, but, you know, just seeing that team rally around each other and just believing in one another, right? You know, a team that was, you know, real connected, a team that, you know, just went out there and trusted the process and just, you know, played it play by play and attacked it day by day.
Has Coach Lanning asked you to speak to the team about that yet, that experience? Because it seemed like that's a pretty good message for the team heading into this week, even though a lot of players on this team are brand new and weren't there for that game.
Yeah, no, he hasn't asked me to speak about that, but I've been, you know, sharing some of that free game to some of the players on the defensive side of the ball, and then obviously talking with some of the offensive dudes that were there, like Marcus Harper, you know, et cetera, guys like that.
What do you think that game and that win on the road meant to the Oregon football fan base?
Yeah, I know it meant a lot. I know it meant a lot to a lot of people that you know became before me and the people that are here now, right? So there's still a lot of people that are here that, you know, they got to experience that game, and, you know, we're trying to relive that this weekend.
Is it difficult during a week like this to kind of ignore the hype, ignore the trappings of a big game like this?
Oh yeah, not at all. I think the team has a great mindset right now. We're really not too focused on, I think, college game days coming. That's cool and all, but that's really for the students and, you know, everybody else to enjoy. But yeah, we're not really too focused on the outside noise. A lot of guys really haven't been focused on it at all. So,
what makes this offense for Ohio State so good?
Yeah, I think just their, you know, being able to run the ball real well, and then also being able to take shots with, you know, the great receivers that they do have. You know, they have a history of having great receivers, and I think that's, you know, Coach Ryan Day's been doing a great job coaching that team ever since he's been there, and I think, you know, those guys bond real well. So, you know, that's going to be a challenge for this defense, and I think we're ready to step up to the challenge for sure.
What makes Will Howard unique as a quarterback, and how much has Kobe been able to help you since you practiced against him for a couple of years?
Yeah, just a little bit. But yeah, no, I think he's, you know, been a real field general for them. You know, getting the ball in the right places. You know, getting the ball to their playmakers, dialing up that offense, right? You know, being, you know, him getting the plays from Coach Kelly. I think that, you know, he's been doing a great job of that as well. So, you know, it's gonna be a you know, a hand-in-hand battle for sure.
You mentioned how they run the ball, Jeff. Either one of these guys could be a lead back. Just about they had been lead backs when they were separate. Is this, from what you see so far, is this the best running back duo you've seen?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is for sure going to have to be the best running backs duo that I've seen all year. You know, two talented guys out of Travion and Judkins as well. So, yeah, no, I'm excited for the challenge. You know, a linebacker going up against two great running backs, that's, you know, everything you could dream for real. So, you know, I'm really excited.
How would you assess the play at linebacker, not just your play, but the group so far through 5 weeks?
Could you repeat that?
Just the linebacker room in general. How would you assess your guys' play through 5 games?
Yeah, really well. I think, you know, young guys have stepped up tremendously, like Devin Jackson. And then obviously you guys know Bryce has been playing great football right now. Great football. And I think Justin Jacobs, that four-man rotation that we have going on right now, just like I said early in the season, we're the best linebacker group in the nation. I believe that, and the guys just trusting one another and the guys just rotating. And, everybody's making plays and everybody's happy for each other. So, that's one thing that I'm blessed to be a part of this group of.
You've played in some really highly contested games of top-ranked team against top-ranked team. What stands out about those games? What do you guys have to do maybe that gets heightened in that kind of an atmosphere?
Yeah, just knowing that every play is critical. Special teams, going all the way down to offense, defense, and special teams, right? You can't leave out one side of the football and expect to come out with the win on top. So all three phases have to be elite. From everybody's singular job has to be to the tip, right? So everybody's gonna have to be ready, have to be dialed in, and I know that guys are have been staying up here watching extra film, and I know that guys are asking more questions and stuff like that. So that's great to hear, and I'm ready for this weekend.
Touched on Ohio State's running backs. You guys have already faced a pretty tough running back this year in Janty over at Boise State. Is there anything you maybe learned from that game or watching any film from that one that you would apply to this one in the run game this week?
Yeah, very familiar to Janty as well. With them having a duo, it's going to be hand in hand. There's not going to be no drop off, right? So, two running backs that are really elusive out in space, but then can hit it between the tackles real well and catch the ball in space as well. So, I'm really excited for that challenge.
Defense is definitely performing better statistically than a year ago so far, Jeff. But are you more confident? Do you feel more confident even than a year ago? Whether it's just the caliber of play at CB2 position, for example, when you guys had it with Washington, where they attacked there pretty consistently, or the run game against them when Jordan went out in particular. Well, Jordan's playing really well. The D-line's playing really well. Do you feel more confident about the unit as a whole compared to last year?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I think the guys have just really gelled really well, and I think a lot of the guys that we've brought in and a lot of guys that were here on the team last year have really expanded that culture and getting everybody together, everybody rolling, right? And I think just like you said, statistically, doing better than we did last year, right? So it's always getting 1% better every day, each week, right? So now we're getting 1% better than we were last year, right? And so the standard is going to continue to get upheld, and we're striving to be the best in the nation. So
how do you explain just the impact Jamari is having up front? He plays a position that oftentimes doesn't get a lot of statistics, but we know that he does more than that. What do you feel like he's impacting the defense for you guys? Tremendously.
It's like you guys see this facility, right? But you guys don't see who cleans up the facility, right? So it's like Jamari, I think his role on this defense is like one to none. Just the way that he takes on blocks to get guys like me free and to get other guys on the defensive lineman free, and then as well just like what he brings to the team as well with his with his talent, just what he can do. A great player and a great person.
You were in the Washington game last year was for first place. Ultimately, both make it to the title game. Talked about Big Ten Media Days. The goal was to get back there. Well, whoever wins this one's going to be in the driver's seat for that. What's the feeling like that, Jeff? Where you live for these kind of moments as a player, I suppose. But what is the feeling to prepare for another one of these opportunities? Whoever gets the win is in that position to get back to Indy.
Yeah, this is, the opportunity of a lifetime. The opportunity of a lifetime. Another reason why I came back, was to play in this game as well. So, we just got to take it play by play before we can even, start thinking about heading back to Indy, right? And there's going to be a lot of more season left before we do get to the championship game. So that's in the rear view mirror for right now. But just focus on the team at hand. Just focus on the practice tomorrow, and dialing up the details that we have to do in practice tomorrow, the things that we got to clean up, and then further on down the road we're worried about that.
Grounded answers from Jeffrey Basa, a veteran, and you have to think about it that way. I know I sound like a broken record at this point on this show, on the coach's show, but that's how you have to approach it. The focus this week, I think, because of all the outside pressure, is you just find that wavelength that's flat. Coach Landing's talked this week about remaining neutral. Don't get too high, and also don't get too low. If you're neutral, that's kind of the process. When you hear coaches and really anybody talk about the process, that's kind of what we're getting at. I'm Joey Mack, and when we come back, we're going to hear from Kobe Savage, a bit from a Johnny Cornelius, continuing to talk Oregon football against Ohio State on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear Autumn Leaves, You won't be covering roads alone this season. Take on fall in the powerful Toyota Tundra or tackle trails in a Tacoma. Head to Toyota.com for more info. Toyota, let's go places.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Dear autumn leaves, you won't be covering roads alone this season. Take on fall in the powerful Toyota Tundra or tackle trails in a Tacoma. Head to Toyota.com for more info. Toyota, let's go places.
Don't go anywhere. Duck Insider continues after these messages on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. And now a speech.
I just want to say that friendship is about heart and brain. Who's with me?
Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
And my brain is saying, when it's time to go home, somebody call me a ride.
Love that guy.
Me too.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Stuck Insider, it's always presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Joey Mack in the Country Financial Studio. Heard from Jeff Basa, now another veteran in Kobe Savage. Remember, a little bit of a unique connection, but becoming less unique, I suppose, in the transfer portal era of college athletics. Well, Kobe Savage played in a lot of practices against now Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. They were both at K-State together, at Kansas State. So Kobe Savage talking a little bit about that and what the Ducks secondary needs to do against a pretty darn good passing attack for Ohio State. Kobe Savage.
Well, you practiced against him for 2 years, so you've got all the keys, all the secrets. How do you get Will uncomfortable and off schedule?
Yeah, really, I feel like it's the same with every quarterback. Will's a great quarterback. Play with him, like you said, for 2 years. Just get him off that pocket, get him off that sequencing that they have. They got a really good O-line, so I feel like adding pressure to that, something that he hasn't really experienced too much, maybe a little bit against Michigan State, will help him get off his cues and force us to give us one.
Like, say it almost jokingly, but are there things, like, you don't have to say what they are, but are you able to cheat a little bit at safety when you know the quarterback as well as you do?
He does have a few, keys and tells that I've noticed over the years, especially a lot of them showing at Ohio State. So, yeah, I feel like we can get away with some.
How difficult is it for you in your position to prepare for an offense that's as nuanced as this, that can beat you in as many different places? It feels like they could force you into some tough spots. Like, what's the key for you this week preparing?
Yeah, I feel like just trusting the game plan Coach Tosh and Coach Hamp have for us. I feel like we got a really good game plan, playing leverage ball. Like you said, they have a really good run game, destroying the run, and obviously really about 3 good receivers. So just having good matchups and playing the ball in there.
This defensive unit's been incredibly effective this year without forcing a ton of turnovers. With a big game like that, is that something you guys are talking about, increasing those, or just steady with what's working?
Yeah, definitely want to increase that. If you look past years and all the games that Ohio State lost, they lost the turnover battle, and then the opposing team also outrushed them. So really just destroying that run and winning the turnover margin will help us tremendously in this game.
What's the challenge in stopping their run game? 2 really good backs.
Yeah, just making sure we're all in our gaps, having good leverage, and just head-up tackles. Just running, just playing with the relentless effort. I feel like that'll get guys to the ground. But they're all obviously 2 great backs.
Is there a feeling after facing a guy like Genty that you can take on any running back in the nation now?
Yeah, obviously Genty was a great running back, so I feel like that helped show us that we can play with a lot of great runners and a lot of great schemes and gap schemes. So, yeah, it does give us that confidence to go into a game like this.
Communication pre-snap's always important, Kobe, but particularly when there may have been an issue on one play last week in that way. How important is it when you do have a receiving core that's as deep as this and that everybody can potentially go over the top to have that nailed down, because one mistake could be the 30-plus yard play.
Yeah, like you said, just pre-snap and even post-snap communication is going to be really big this game. I feel like we've done a great job from all the way from Idaho and Boise State, just communicating safety from safety or maybe safety to star or corner. That post-snap and pre-snap communication is definitely going to be big this game, and we've been doing, I feel like, a pretty good job at practice reiterating that.
How hard does that become at times where, like Chip die up all kinds of formations at times, but I think the one time they got you last week was on a bunch formation in motion, and it's short-term communication there. So when an OC can do that, how hard is that as a safety to get that done in the secondary, to get that done in a very, very short period of time?
Yeah, I feel like just changing tools up, adding new tools and stuff that we had throughout camp that we haven't shown in film yet, but just practicing those tools. We got different bunch of adjustments, motion adjustments. So I feel like this week is when we're going to have to really hone in on those vocal skills and communication skills to getting sure that we all have the right adjustment.
What's the key mentally this week to staying even keeled when there's all this noise, obviously, around this game?
Yeah, I mean, just really worrying about everybody on that field and that facility. Like Coach Landon says, FIBU. I mean, it's nobody but us. So just staying within this building and not getting too high or too low. Like he said today, he was going to stay neutral and make sure that we're all staying neutral, whether it's a big play or a small play that didn't go our way. So
and there's Kobe Savage on that subject that we were talking about. You kind of stay that neutral. Huge play, same as the big time bad play. I think it's so easy to say that, and then shout fires up, you're ready to go. Yeah, I mean, that's tough. That's that mental toughness piece of all of this that makes a huge, huge difference. All right, quick timeout in a moment. First to Johnny Cornelius, the Oregon offensive lineman. He met with the media talking about some of the keys against that Buckeye front. Johnny Cornelius talking O-line.
Seeing the offensive line kind of improve these last 3 games where you've limited the number of sacks and pressures on Dylan.
Gotcha. Just our chemistry is definitely built. We got some guys moving around and just getting those reps in practice consistently. So just the gel kind of, and just the communication with everything with Dylan has just improved tremendously. It's been really good to see it all come together.
What did you guys try to do to get that communication with Dylan and with you guys on the offensive line to kind of get better?
Just increase emphasis, extra meetings, things like that.
How's your comfort level with Marcus, who's somebody who you played in line with but not next to as much before?
Yeah, I really like playing next to Marcus. A lot of people don't know, but Marcus hosted me on my official visit here. So he brought me in here. So me and Marcus, we've always gotten along, and it's been a pleasure playing next to him.
So he's why you picked Oregon over Ohio State?
No, he's not the reason. He's not the reason why I came to Oregon, but he's a big part of it. So I'm grateful to Marcus.
Go back to that decision at the time, Johnny, because it came down to these 2 schools. What were the differentiating factors? What was it about here versus there, and why you ultimately chose here compared to?
Well, we talked about this before, but over all the schools, Oregon was my gut choice. You know what I mean? Like when I came here, just talking to Coach Landon and talking to all the players, specifically Marcus and the dudes on the O-line, just this place was clearly home for me.
Their edge guys are really talented and have a lot of pressures this year. What's kind of the key with those guys, JTT and Sawyer and the whole group?
Just trusting our process, trusting our coaching, trusting our technique, and playing our game.
Is there anybody you compare them to? Obviously, when you guys played Washington last year, they had some really good bookends as well. But I mean, that's potentially a lazy comparison. But you tell me, is that comparable? Are there players you faced who you compare these guys to?
I think every player is different, and I approach everybody differently. So I wouldn't compare them to anybody. But yeah.
What makes them unique then? What is it that does make them special in that way and different in that way?
Just like I'm saying, everybody is specifically different. Things that they rely on, so I just analyze everybody specifically to their own thing.
You mentioned having different guys in the group, moving parts around the offensive line this year. Has that created any challenges for you guys, or you feel like you've worked those kinks out so far?
Definitely feel like we've been working the kinks out. Feeling good, ready to move forward.
How do you think Pancho specifically handled the early season adversity, rotating at center, at guard? How do you think he just handled those first few weeks and has come to his own the last couple?
Gotcha. He's handled it like a pro. Poncho, he's a tough kid. He's ready for anything. So no matter what adversity he faces, we've all got his back. We've all got each other's back, and no matter what, we'll be strong.
Does the line getting better week after week feel like a weight off your shoulders, or just more of a confidence build?
Say it again.
When you can feel yourself getting better week after week, does it feel more like a weight off your shoulders? You're not as stressed about it, or is it more confidence building moving forward?
Yeah, growth in any regard is good. So we're just happy to keep on growing, and we expect to continue to keep growing throughout the season, for sure.
What about the environment, Johnny? I mean, having a game like this at home, does that fire you up?
Nah, for sure. Definitely excited to compete. This is a big week, and we're excited.
It is a big week. Johnny Cornelius talking with the media there on the Oregon offensive line, winning in the trenches. We're talking about the defense, winning in the trenches, stopping the run. We'll get the run game going equally on the Oregon offense side. Certainly a key in this one. When we come back, we're going to talk a little volleyball. Big win for Matt Ulmer's team. 11 versus 16. Number 11 came out on top last night at Matthew Knight Arena. Keep it here on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey Duck fans, at Country Financial, they make insurance easy. Whether you're shopping for home, auto, or more, their representatives will take the time to understand your specific needs and explain what options work best for you. Worry less and feel more confident knowing you're covered. Visit countryfinancial.com to get started today. Experience more with Country Financial. Auto and home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, and Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
You're listening to Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Put your phone on D&D, that means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on D&D, that means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Last night, a straight set win for Oregon volleyball, and the Oregon head coach, Matt Ulmer, broke it down for us last night as it kicked off the mighty big week here at the University of Oregon with events Wednesday, tonight, women's soccer, Friday, cross country, football Saturday, and then we got soccer and volleyball and softball for you on Sunday. Matt Ulmer, a little bit from his post-match comments here as the Ducks took down USC.
All right, Coach, we'll start with just a quick, your opening thoughts on tonight's win over USC, then we'll take some questions from the group.
Proud of our group. I thought we really stayed steady throughout the whole match. USC is a very good team, really well coached. They bring a lot of problems to you with how they play their offense and a really good setter in Mia Tuniga, and I thought we handled it well. It was really important for us to bounce back after Penn State. We didn't feel like ourselves at all in that gym, and you can get rattled when that happens, start to doubt yourself, and we had a couple great days of practice, and to see them come out and really probably play, our most complete match of the year on both sides of the ball was really encouraging.
What was the pregame talk that you had with your players, especially, as you just said, after, the Penn State match?
I mean, what I told them, I said I had one request today, and it was that they were just going to get in a fight, right? I wanted to see us really battle. again, I thought, against Pitt and Penn State, those two matches in particular, teams that, are physically, were physically alike. I just thought we were too wimpy. You really got to. They're gonna make great plays, and we've got to flush that and come back and make plays of our own. And I think sometimes we forget how good we can be, and we doubt ourselves. So I just wanted to see that consistently tonight. I thought USC was going to put up a great challenge to us, and I thought it was going to be a really tough match. But I knew that if we could just really engage in that mindset, that we'd have a good shot.
Coach, really pivotal comeback at the end of set 2 there to change momentum going into set 3. What do you have to say about your team's resilience?
I thought really important execution at the end of that second set. I thought in that second set, I thought we let a few points go that, were in our scouting report that we were handling pretty much the whole match, but we just had a few lapses, and that got them that lead. So I thought we locked back down into our game plan really well. And then, Michelle made a couple really nice plays. Our servers, I think we had 3 servers in a row that went back and put tough balls on them, and just gave us opportunities. I really like, again, in those moments, like, you have to go make the plays, right? You have to be the aggressors and go for it. And I thought they did that, and then I thought it carried over for us the rest of the match, and then we didn't back off again, and that was really encouraging to see.
3 runs in the whole match that were longer than 2 points. You side out at almost 70%. Why are you so effective at keeping them from building any momentum?
I thought I don't know the numbers, but it sure felt like we were passing well. And again, I thought last weekend, actually, I thought our best passing match was Penn State. All the other stuff was not good, but I thought last weekend, and we've really been working on it in practice, because that Illinois-Indiana weekend we gave up so many points in serve receive, and we've been working on it hard. But I thought everybody was really locked in today. Again, just a couple lapses you're talking about in serve receive, and that was it. But that allowed Chris, I thought, to really take a look at the other side, make good choices, sniff out the right matchups, who she should go to, and then everybody was going in trusting her. Again, I thought that's the most trust we've had with each other on offense and defense this year. And if we do that, it's going to be tough to score against us, and we can do a lot of different things. But that's what we're trying to get to.
Positive takeaways for Matt Ulmer's team after the straight set win over USC last night. The beginning of the mighty big week. Oregon soccer is in action this evening at Pape Field. The Ducks getting ready to host Michigan State at 6:30. It's televised on Big Ten Network. Also Oregon soccer at 1 o'clock against a pretty darn good Michigan team. It's on the Big Ten Plus stream at 1 o'clock on Sunday, and it is senior day. I hope that you'll join us at Pape Field. Oregon Volleyball is also in action against Washington at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Fall ball for Duck softball on Sunday if you want to make it over to the Jane at 3 o'clock as well. And then tomorrow, the Bill Dellinger Invitational in Springfield, here in the Eugene-Springfield area. Ducks cross country around here. Doesn't happen very often. Get a chance to see them. We'll have some updates for you on the show tomorrow. Good luck to Oregon soccer tonight. Jerry and Jorgie are with us tomorrow. Big time preview next.
Babes, what are you doing?
What? I'm just mowing the lawn.
No, it's blazing hot and dry out here. Don't you remember? Smokey Bear says.
Avoid using power equipment when it's windy or dry.
Where'd you learn this?
Oh, it's on
SmokeyBear.com with many other wildfire prevention tips.
Right. Thanks, Honey Bear.
Because remember, only